Building one of these circuits is not a walk in the park, and it can cost a significant amount in terms of both manpower and money. Formula One is a sport that requires a lot of heavy spending, and hundreds of millions of dollars are thrown into it every season. Everyone knows that this is the most technologically advanced and financially expensive sport in the entire world. Even big-name events like the Soccer World Cup and the Olympic Games do not even approach the viewing figures and ticket revenue of Formula One. The expansion of the sport requires that new event venues should be created. So, just how are these circuits transformed from the design phase all the way to the final execution? Designing a Formula One circuit. Nailing the design of a track can be challenging because the right design is one that challenges the driver and his car in specific places, but not everywhere. A Formula One track is a dynamic environment for a race car, and is not really a static piece of construction. If the racetrack challenges the driver at every point, then it's likely that we're going to see drivers make mistakes everywhere. The trick for creating an exciting race is to place what are called mistake generators as strategic points which may look pretty straightforward, but have an effect on traction, braking, or rotation. The topography of the land is also taken into account. Several questions are asked, such as whether the land is flat or hilly, what the ground is made out of, and whether there is a waterway. The idea is to build a track to fit seamlessly with the existing site, rather than forcing the land to yield to the will of the designer. As you can see, designing a Formula One track is no easy feat. Famous designers like Herman Tilke, who's designed and modified almost every circuit on the Formula One calendar, is a master of the finer details of Formula One track designing. Constructing a Formula One track. Most F1 engineers like to think that constructing a track is just as demanding as competing in the race itself, as a whole lot of research goes into the making of a circuit. In an area that can be as large as 100 football fields, constructors have to find a way to nail the exact specifications of the designer while keeping the regulations of the FIA in mind. The construction of a Formula One circuit is done with three factors in consideration: the number of corners the circuit's going to have, the distance of the straight route, and the surface of the track. Laying down the surface and designing it right is crucial for the safety of drivers and spectators. Empty spaces or traps have to be laid around the track. These help to prevent collisions with track walls and barriers. The empty spaces are about 25 centimeters deep and are filled with gravel stones. According to the F1 official website, the Monaco circuit has 33 kilometers of safety rails and almost 650 marshals stationed on the day of the race to ensure the safety of the drivers. Some of the materials used for track construction are grey-whack and asphalt. Grey-whack is a type of sandstone that is gotten from an area where erosion happens too quickly. A new mix is created for each track depending on the climate of the area, the availability of the raw material, and the local standards. Formula One tracks are usually used for several events, like motorcycle races and high-class car racing. This must be considered when making the actual tracks. Cost of building an F1 track. The average Formula One track can set the owner back about $270 million, but there are some high-end circuits like the Yas Marina which cost more than $1 billion to build. It is the most expensive racetrack ever made and was designed by the famous Herman Tilke. It is estimated that more than 14,000 workers worked on the construction of this behemoth. Regulations of a Grade 1 circuit. The layout of the circuit is important to consider. Ovals are a no-go in terms of the shape of the track. The FIA makes practical suggestions to the shape, and they may introduce a slight tweak to produce better rating. The maximum permitted length of the straight section of the track is 2 kilometers. No new circuit is allowed to exceed 7 kilometers in total length and must be longer than 3.5 kilometers. For the track width, new permanent tracks are expected to have a width of at least 12 meters. Permanent tracks should also have a continuous border around them, with a white line in anti-skid paint forming the border. The line should be a maximum of 10 centimeters wide. The runoff areas also have specifications, and they should also be graded to make changeovers as smooth as possible. An inclined runoff area should not exceed 25% upwards or 3% downwards. There should also be enough space to hold in excess of 200,000 spectators, as well as a medical center with a team of doctors trained in resuscitation to be present. 2 surgeons must also be on ground. with one who knows how to treat burns and the other who is experienced in concussion and spinal injuries. The medical personnel must also have a good understanding of English, and all of them must be experienced in dealing with patients who have trauma. Spaces for timing rooms, media centers, race control, and marshal posts also need to be accounted for. The list of recommendations and regulations go on for ages, which makes sense because the health and safety of those present must be taken seriously. The FIA makes use of a simulation program to determine the appropriate size of the circuit, as well as the runoff area. The program is called the Circuit Safety Analysis System, or the CSAS. This system predicts the trajectory and impact points of a car under many different circumstances, especially if a driver loses control at a precise moment. From what we can see, everything in F1, right down to the tracks, is under an intense amount of regulation and has to meet specific standards. This is what makes the sport as intense as it is today, giving viewers everywhere an enjoyable treat. If you like this video, make sure you check out our last video on everything about the Formula 1 pole position. Catch you next time.